Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, I have a special guest for you today, me, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer. I'm going to be talking with you about the emotional meaning of your muscle pain. Now, why is this relevant? I'll talk about things that sometimes happen to me. So sometimes I'll get a pain in my body and I do my yoga and it's still there. And I go to my chiropractor and it's still there. Sometimes what happens is that your body is talking to you. Now, I remember years ago, I went to listen to a lecture by the great neuroscientist Candace Pert. Now, Candace Pert, female neuroscientist, she was the co-discoverer of endorphins. And I'll never forget her saying, if you want to understand what is going on with your subconscious mind, just look down at your body. I'm going to repeat that. If you want to understand what's going on with your subconscious mind, just look down at your body. Now, what I know from my 30 years experience in natural healing is the body is quite fascinating, and your body is always giving you messages. It's really just a question of, are we listening? And this is one of the many reasons why people come to me for medical intuitive readings. They have a pain somewhere, and no matter what they do, they can't seem to resolve it. And that's frequently because your body is giving you messages about emotions that you have buried. Sigmund Freud, and I'm going to paraphrase Sigmund Freud, he said that buried emotions never die. They just show up in uglier ways. So from my experience at 30 years in natural healing, what I will share with you is that when you first have an event, a traumatic event in your life, the emotions about it will be conscious for about 6 days. So, for example, on Sunday, I was in a parking lot and had a minor little fender bender. Okay. So I had emotions about that and I was aware of how I felt. Now, during that time, when you have an emotion, you want to take the time to process it. What does that look like? You talk about it, you write it, you move the energy. Emotions are supposed to be energy in motion. It's one of the many reasons why we exercise, is to release the stress out of your body. Stress is a real thing. Stress affects your body and affects your body chemistry and your body physiology. So after 6 days, if you don't fully resolve what the emotions that event brought up, then it goes from conscious to subconscious. And then if you continue to bury it, as Sigmund Freud said, then the emotions show up in uglier ways. So what happens is, if you don't fully resolve the emotions, they go deep into your body, which is what I want to talk to you about today. One of my 10 books is called The Difference Between Pain and Suffering. And I do all my work prayerfully. And I received guidance one day that I needed to write about what is the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the physical experience. Suffering is the emotional experience, all right? And we're human. And because you have a body, as long as you're alive in this lifetime, you're going to have a body and you're going to need to and want to take care of it so that you can do what your soul is here to do easily and joyfully. So I want to talk to you today again about the emotional meaning of muscle pain, so that when you have chronic back pain, for example, or chronic foot pain, and you can't seem to get rid of it by ordinary methods. You may be trying really hard and doing a great job of taking care of yourself, but not resolving the pain because you haven't fully released the emotion. So again, you have to understand that your body is always talking to you. So I'm going to be talking to you about your body in terms of the meridians. And many of us, we know we have our body, but we're not familiar with all the muscles. So as we go along, I'm going to be talking to you about the muscles and where they're located. All right. So many of us have heard of acupuncture, and this is also very interesting because there's a flow of energy in the body. All right. And the muscles feed energy into our organs. So again, I'm going to be talking to you specifically today about muscles, but when you don't resolve the emotions out of the muscles, that can also be affecting your organ function as well. But know that today I'm going to be talking about your muscles. So starting with the central acupuncture meridian. So the central acupuncture meridian goes from your pubic bone to the top of your lower lip, and it brings energy to the brain and eyes. It is the primary yin meridian in your body. You may have heard of yin and yang. Yin is the female energy. It's the light. It's the dark energy. It's the earth energy. It's quiet. Now, the supraspinatus meridian is on the central acupuncture meridian, and it is the most superior located of the rotator cuff muscles. So it's basically behind your shoulders, at not quite at the top of the shoulders, but right behind the shoulders on your shoulder blade. Now, the primary emotion behind your supraspinatus muscle has to do with self-respect. If you're overwhelmed or feel shy, or you're ashamed, or you don't feel successful, that can affect your supraspinatus muscle, primary yin meridian of the body. And when a kinesiologist is checking the supraspinatus muscle, they're going to bring your arms out in front of you and test that way. And that's also going to show whether the energy is coming all the way fully up to your brain and your eyes. Now, you also have yang energy. So yang energy is the light, it's the male, it's the active, it's the doing. And the teres major muscle is a thick, flattened rectangular muscle that goes from the scapulae, the shoulder blade, to the medial lip of the humerus. So basically, the teres major it connects the shoulder blade to your arm bone. Now, this teres major muscle, the primary muscle that people check for the yang energy in your body, it's governing meridian. And the governing meridian keeps you grounded. So those of us who are not fully connected to the earth, who are spending too much time in our head or out of our body, they're going to have issues with the governing meridian, potentially issues with the teres major muscle. So the emotion behind teres major, embarrassment. When you feel embarrassed, that affects your teres major. If you feel unsupported, we all need to feel support in life. And you're always supported by the divine. Every one of you has angels. And a lot of us just need to learn how to connect to all the love and support that's already here for you. Another emotion affecting teres major is harmony, whether you're in harmony with yourself, or in harmony with the planet, in harmony with the world around you. Trust. Do you trust yourself? Do you trust the unfolding of your life? And also truth. So if you're lying to yourself or living life as a lie, which is a very common syndrome among addiction, that will also be affecting your teres major, your primary yang meridians. So moving on to the stomach meridian. So stomach meridian, we're going to be talking about the pectoralis major clavicular. So the pectoralis major clavicular, I say that all really fast, I'm used to interviewing people, so thanks for bearing with me. It's the most superficial muscle in the chest. It's large and fan-shaped, and is composed of a sternal head and a clavicular head. So it's going to be attaching to your collarbone, your clavicle. Now, stomach meridian has to do with contentment. So feeling content and blessed. So pec major clavicular, emotions that might be affecting your stomach meridian, feeling unreliable, or you can't rely on people around you. Criticism, if you feel criticized. Contentment, and again, the more that you can cultivate feeling content and blessed and being happy with everything that you already have, you're going to be strengthening your stomach meridian. Disappointment, deprivation, hunger, nausea, greed. These are all negative emotions that affect your stomach meridian and the pec major clavicular. Feeling empty. Now, sympathy and empathy. When we sympathize and empathize with other people and we relate to what's going on with them, that may be affecting your pectoralis major clavicular. Again, harmony and feeling disgusted, doubting the process of life, or feeling bitter about things that have happened to you. Now, the levator scapulae muscles, where are these located? The levator scapulae is a slender skeletal muscle at the back and the side of the neck. So every muscle has an origin and insertion. So it originates on the transverse processes of the cervical vertebrae, your neck, and attaches and inserts to the top of your shoulder blade. So levator scapulae, again, stomach meridian, the emotions, feeling unreliable, feeling criticized, not feeling content with what we have, feeling disappointed in our lives or ourselves, feeling deprived, hunger, nausea, greed, feeling empty, like you can never get enough. And then being overly sympathetic or being overly empathetic. So taking on too much energy that's not actually yours. And again, lack of harmony with the world around you and feeling disgusted, doubtful, and bitter. Now, you have neck muscles, and some of them are in the front of your neck, and some of them are in the back of the neck. So anterior neck muscles are on the front of your neck. So the emotions that affect the front of your neck, feeling unreliable, feeling criticized, not feeling content, feeling disappointed, deprived, constantly hungry, nausea, greed, again, emptiness, and again, sympathy and empathy. Again, and these are emotions that are out of balance. So being sympathetic to others can be positive, but when we're taking on too much of the energy of people around us, that's not a positive thing. And again, feeling disgusted, doubtful, and bitter. Now, the posterior neck muscles, neck extensors, the anterior are neck flexors, so they flex your neck. The posterior at the back, again, the emotions, feeling unreliable, like you can't count on things, feeling criticized, feeling lack of contentment, disappointment, deprivation, hunger, nausea, greed, empty sympathy, empathy, again, lack of harmony, disgust, doubtful, and bitter. Now, your brachioradialis muscle is a muscle that crosses your elbow joint, okay? And a lot of times when we have chronic insomnia, that muscle gets activated, or if you have tennis elbow, syndrome, that muscle is constantly aching. So brachioradialis, stomach meridian, again, feeling unreliable, feeling criticized, not feeling happy or content with what you have, disappointment, deprivation, hunger, nausea, greed, and again, feeling empty inside, feeling overly sympathetic, lack of harmony, disgust, doubt, and bitterness. Now, with that, let's take a break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, and I'm talking with you today about the emotional meaning behind muscle pain. Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, talking with you today about the emotional meaning behind muscle pain. Now, we're moving on to the spleen meridian. Now, emotions that affect the spleen include worry. So I'll never forget, years ago, I was having constant problems with my spleen, and the healer that I was working with at the time said, Catherine, you're just going to have to learn how to stop worrying. And I remember at the time, I was like, well, how do I do that? Well, one of the ways you stop worrying is to realize that God is in charge and everything is unfolding in divine and perfect order. Now, the largest muscle in the spleen meridian is called the latissimus dorsi muscle. Now, the lats, your latissimus dorsi muscle, is in the lower 2/3 of your trunk. It's actually the widest muscle in your body. So the lats, very big muscle. And the emotions that affect your latissimus dorsi muscle on the spleen meridian: feeling rejected, indifference, disapproval, when you feel like other people disapprove of you or you don't approve of yourself, lack of faith in the future, anxiety about the future, brooding, feeling cynical, envious, feeling alienated, or lack of self-confidence. Now, the middle and lower trapezius muscles are also on the spleen meridian. The function of the trapezius, so we're basically talking about your upper back, and the trapezius muscle in general looks like a kite, and it's divided into upper, middle, and lower. So we're going to be talking here in the spleen meridian about the middle and lower trapezius. Now, so really in the upper back is where the middle and lower trapezius is going to be located, sort of between your thoracic vertebrae there. It arises from the spinous processes of the seventh cervical, that's the back of the neck, and the spinous processes of the first, second, and third thoracic vertebrae, upper back. So, and the lower trapezius, that's the middle trapezius, and the lower trapezius originates on the spine and extends from the second thoracic vertebrae all the way down to T12. So again, pretty big muscle, not as big as the lats. Now, the emotions that affect the middle and lower trapezius, again, on the spleen meridian: feeling rejected, feeling indifferent, like you don't really care about what's going on, lack of assurance, feeling disapproved of, lack of faith in the future, anxiety about the future, worrying about the future, brooding, cynicism, envy, feeling alienated, and lack of self-confidence. Now, also on the spleen meridian is the opponens pollicis. So the opponens pollicis muscle is in your hand. It's a small triangular muscle that brings your thumb and the little finger together. The opponens pollicis muscle is highly affected by blood sugar imbalances. So blood sugar imbalances are a primary cause of anxiety. So any kind of blood sugar imbalance can affect your spleen meridian and make you feel anxious. So the emotions behind the opponens pollicis muscle, again, feeling rejected, indifferent, feeling disapproved of, worry about the future, lack of self-confidence, feeling alienated, like you don't really feel like you fit in, feeling cynical or envious of others, brooding. And again, all of this is going to affect that big muscle in your hand. So the next muscle moving on to is the triceps. So the tricep muscle is on the back of your upper arm. It often appears in the shape of a horseshoe on the back of the arm. And the emotions behind the tricep muscle, again, on the spleen meridian, feeling rejected, lack of assurance, feeling indifferent, feeling disapproved of, anxiety about the future, feeling cynical or envious, feeling alienation, lack of self-confidence. And again, if we're overly empathetic and take on the energy of others, which is another way of form of worrying. And going back to how not to worry is, especially if you find yourself worrying about others, is just to instead, when you worry about others, they go weak and you do also. But when you see everyone as being exactly where they are on their own spiritual path, and see everyone as whole and not broken. So when I'm doing a medical intuitive reading, even with people who are extremely unwell, I know deep in my soul that their soul is exactly where they need to be on their spiritual path. And whatever illness they have created is actually part of their spiritual experience, so that they're needing to work something out. Now, moving on to the heart meridian. So subscapularis, so where is that? The subscapularis is a large triangular muscle on the anterior surface of your shoulder blade, okay? Now, heart meridian, pretty important. In Chinese medicine, the heart is referred to as the emperor of the body. So what emotions affect your subscapularis and this heart meridian? Lack of forgiveness. I truly believe, as a medical intuitive healer, that if everyone really comprehended what lack of forgiveness does to you, that you would really make an effort to go around and forgive everyone for everything that has ever happened in your life that you feel has harmed you. So forgiveness and lack of forgiveness absolutely hurts your heart and definitely affects that subscapularis, which is one of your major muscles in the rotator cuff. So compassion, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, self-doubt, feeling insecure, anger, hate, and love. So one of the primary things that the heart meridian is about is knowing who you are, knowing why you're here, and loving yourself, really learning to love. And one of my mentors in healing said, you either learn to open your heart or a surgeon will open it for you. So all issues of the heart are going to affect that subscapularis, that deep muscle in the and part of the rotator cuff on the scapula, the shoulder blade. So moving on to the small intestine meridian. Now, the small intestine meridian on an emotional level is about assimilation. So when you assimilate, you take in what you need. So let's say you go to a lecture and maybe part of it you already know, but there's some new information. Like maybe you know a lot of what I'm talking about, but maybe there's something that I'm saying that gives you like an aha, like, oh, that's why I still have this pain, because I haven't fully resolved all my anger. So small intestine meridian, taking in what you need, okay? Large intestine's about letting go of what you don't need. So, and the interesting thing about small intestine is when you don't really learn your lessons, you tend to repeat them. So you know that you have issues with your small intestine when you keep making the same mistakes over and over again. I always joke as a medical intuitive healer, it's more interesting to go on to make new mistakes, right? So what muscles are on the small intestine meridian? Your quadriceps. So the quadriceps are 4 muscles on the top of the front of your thigh. So what emotions affect your quadriceps? Joy, shock. When you go into shock, that affects your quadriceps. Sorrow, sadness, internalization, all right? My father used to say that there's 2 kinds of people in life, people who get ulcers and people who give ulcers. So if you're somebody who holds things in, and again, you're not resolving these emotions, that could be affecting your small intestine and your quadricep muscles. Feeling unappreciated, nervousness, overly excited, discouraged, again, and not taking in what you need. On the positive, when you really nourish yourself, when you take in what you need, when you figure out what you need. Like when I do a medical intuitive reading, it's like the blueprint for your optimal health, because I'll figure out, well, what do you need? What do you need? And I always talk about there's a difference between a need and a want. A need is something that if you don't get that met, then you're off balance and not okay. A want is something that may satisfy your soul and bring you joy, but if you don't get it, you're still okay. So I always joke, I want to go to Paris, but if I don't get enough food or if I don't get enough sleep, I will definitely be not okay. So when you nourish yourself, you're strengthening your small intestine meridian and strengthening your quadriceps muscle and feeling hurt, deeply hurt. Also on the small intestine meridian are the abdominal muscles. So those are your 6-pack muscles on the front there. The emotions, again, joy, shock, sorrow, sadness, internalization, unappreciated, nervousness, overexcited, discouraged, assimilation, nourishing, and hurting. So moving on to the bladder meridian. Now, the bladder meridian is about control. And you want to feel like you're in control of your own life versus feeling controlled by forces larger than myself. My boss is in charge. My partner is in charge. The economy is in charge. Some, world event is in charge. So you want to know and experience on a deep soul level that your soul is guiding you and that your soul is guiding you to all that is good, worthy, and important for your own life experience, and that you're in charge. So what muscles are on the bladder meridian? The first one we're going to talk about is the peroneus muscle. The peroneus longus is a long muscle superficially in the lateral compartment of the lower leg. So it's on the outside of that lower leg. So the emotions that affect your peroneus: fear, anxiety. When we feel peaceful and at peace, inner peace strengthens the peroneus and the bladder meridian. Dread, like I'm really dreading this happening or this event. Terror, panic. Resoluteness, like when you make up your mind, I'm definitely doing this. I'm gonna be in charge of my own life. I'm gonna be in charge of my willpower. Frustration, impatience, inner direction. When you get really clear on setting your own goals and setting your path in life, that strengthens your bladder meridian. Confidence, when you're confident in yourself and you're confident in your soul direction, that strengthens that bladder meridian. Feeling inadequate and courage strengthens the bladder. Now, another major muscle group on the bladder meridian, and the bladder meridian is the longest muscle in the body, is our sacrospinalis muscle group, the erector spinae muscle. So where are these? So the sacrospinalis group of muscles are on either side of the spinous processes of the vertebrae. So it's basically on either side of the spine, and they extend through the lower back, middle back, and all the way up into the neck. So lumbar, thoracic, and cervical regions. And when you strengthen the sacrospinalis muscles, that will help support your spine. So what emotions affect this long group of muscles on either side of your spine? Fear, anxiety. Again, peacefulness will strengthen it. Dread, like, oh, I just really am dreading this event. Terror, panic. When you're resolute, you make up your mind, that strengthens it. Feeling frustrated, impatient. And again, when you get clear on your own inner direction and support yourself, that strengthens it. Feeling confident strengthens it. Feeling inadequate definitely weakens it, and courage will strengthen it. So also on the bladder meridian tibialis anterior. So we've got tibialis anterior and tibialis posterior. So we're talking about muscles on the lower leg. These are on your shin bone, and the emotions affecting your tibialis anterior and posterior include fear, anxiety, again, peacefulness. When you're at peace with yourself and the world around you, that strengthens it. Dread, terror, and panic will adversely affect the tibialis anterior and posterior. Making up your mind, being resolute, strengthens it. Frustration and impatience affects these muscles. Having your own clear sense of inner direction strengthens it, and feeling confident strengthens it. And having the courage to follow your own direction in life strengthens it, and feeling inadequate weakens it. So as we go along, you'll notice there are both positive and negative emotions, and all of these emotions are going to be affecting these muscles both positively and negatively. And as you learn to cultivate positive emotions, you're going to be happier, you're going to be healthier, and your muscles are going to work better. So having a positive attitude, that PMA, is absolutely going to affect the health of your muscles. And with that, let's take another break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author, here today talking with you about your emotional anatomy and the emotional meaning behind your muscle pain. So when you get that cramp in a certain muscle, or you have chronic pain in a certain area, then you can ask yourself, what emotions have I not fully resolved? Now, moving on to the kidney meridian. Now, here's a muscle that has really recently fascinated me. And again, I spent 30 years of my career in natural healing, studying all about the body. And I really love it when I learn something new. The psoas is the only muscle that connects your spine to your legs. Now, we're talking about the kidney meridian. Now, the kidney meridian is affected by fear. So any emotion that makes you feel anxious or fearful is absolutely going to affect your kidney meridian. I remember when I was studying medical intuition, walking into the classroom one day, and the teacher said, okay, we're going to clear all our fears today. And I remember just laughing. I'm like, we don't have enough time. I have long lists of fears. So when I'm working with somebody and I find that you are afraid, then I'm going to find out what's the fear about. What is it about? When did it start? How long have you had this fear? So we want to be compassionate to ourselves, because a lot of us are afraid of all kinds of things. So psoas, again, this is a deep muscle in the body. It's very, very deep, and deep fear absolutely affects the psoas. And it's quite interesting, because when you release the psoas, it helps you people get out of fight, flight, and trauma. It helps to release that deep trauma response. Now, the psoas originates on your 12th thoracic vertebrae, and it attaches to your lumbar vertebrae, the lower back vertebrae, and then inserts at the top of your femur bone and the pelvis. So it's very deep. It's parallel to the rectus abdominis. So what emotions affect your psoas, this deep muscle? Fear, anxiety, phobia. And again, I've got long lists of phobias, right? What am I not afraid of, right? And what have I not resolved? It's going to frequently show up in your psoas. Sexual insecurity, creative insecurity, superstition, paranoia, feeling overly cautious, or also careless, reckless, indecisive, loyalty, and strength and sat. So when you understand that kidney meridian is about fear, the opposite of fear is what I call a bring it on attitude. It's about giving your whole spirit to life. It's like, bring it on. Bring on the good, the bad, the indifferent. I am a soul. I'm on fire with my purpose. I'm here to share and bring on life. So when you have and cultivate that attitude, it's going to strengthen your kidney meridian. Now, your upper trapezius muscle, where is that? It's sometimes referred to as your trihard muscle. It's at the top of the shoulders. When we have poor posture and we slump, I joke, I'm here to stamp out slumping in my lifetime. When you slump, the upper trapezius acts like a hood and really tightens up. Many of us, most humans, if you touch the top of their shoulders, it's just super, super tight. So what emotions affect your upper trapezius? Again, fear, anxiety, phobia, sexual insecurity, creative insecurity, superstition, paranoia, overly cautious, careless, reckless, indecisive. And on the positive side, being loyal, okay? Because when you're loyal, you're giving your whole spirit to something that you've decided is important. Like you're loyal to your family. And the last muscle we're going to talk about in the kidney meridian is your iliacus. So the iliacus muscle is situated on the largest of the three bones of the pelvis. It's a wing-shaped ilium, and it works in conjunction with the psoas. There's a group referred to as the iliopsoas. And again, it's affected by fear, anxiety, phobia, sexual insecurity, creative insecurity, superstition, paranoia, overly cautious, careless, reckless, indecisive. So give your whole spirit to life and resolve those deep traumas, and your psoas and your iliacus and your upper trapezius will be so much better. So again, so much of us, when we go into fear, we go into that fight, flight, or freeze response, and it shows up in these deep muscles. Now, moving on to the circulation sex meridian. So there's two meridians having to do with the heart. One, of course, called the heart meridian. This next one that we're going to be talking about is sometimes referred to as the pericardian meridian, or the heart protector meridian, or the circulation sex meridian. And the pericardium goes around the heart. So gluteus medius is a large fan-shaped muscle on the posterior hip. So it's extending from the ilium to the proximal femur. So it's basically the side of your buttocks. And the emotions affecting gluteus medius: gloomy, hysteria, when we're able to relax, that's beneficial for your buttock muscles. Stubbornness, when we hang on to the past, that affects that area. Tranquility, generosity, and calm strengthen the gluteus medius. Feeling overly responsible, jealous, or remorseful, that can affect your gluteus medius. Then we have the gluteus maximus, which is the most superficial and the largest of the three muscles, and makes up the bulk of the shape and the form of the buttock and hip area. So emotions that affect gluteus maximus: negative emotions, feeling gloomy, hysterical, stubborn, holding on to the past, being jealous, remorseful. Positive emotions: relaxing, feeling calm and tranquil. These all strengthen it. Now, the circulation sex meridian is about bonding and connection. Now, the first person that you must connect with is actually yourself. You want to connect with yourself, you want to connect with your soul, and you want to have that deep relationship, calm and confident and caring and compassionate with your own body. And then outside yourself, the first human that you connect with is your mother. So people who are not breastfed or who don't have a good connection with their mother often then have trouble connecting with others. The two other muscle groups in the circulation sex meridian are your adductor muscles and your piriformis muscles. So, and again, the emotions affecting the adductors are your inner thighs, and the piriformis muscle is affected when we get sciatica. So the sciatic nerve, the piriformis muscle is located partially on the posterior wall of the lesser pelvis and partially posterior to the hip joint. So the muscle originates from several locations in the pelvis, passes through the greater sciatic nerve notch. So the piriformis, when it's tight, can be a primary cause of sciatic pain, and it inserts on the superior aspect of the greater trochanter. So inner thighs and this deep muscle inside the hip, the emotions include negative emotions: gloomy, hysteria, stubbornness, jealousy, remorsefulness. Positive emotions: relaxation, calm, tranquility, and having a balanced sense of responsibility. Sometimes we can feel overly responsible, but you have to understand that the meaning of the word responsible is able to respond. So when we feel able to respond to the demands that life puts on us, that strengthens these muscles. Now, the next meridian that we're going to be talking about is the triple warmer meridian, also known as the triple heater meridian. So this has, when we are too stressed, we are out of harmony with ourselves and out of harmony with life. So many people who have adrenal burnout, they have affected their triple heater meridian. Excessive stress of any kind will affect the triple heater meridian. So it's about being in harmony, being in rhythm with the flow of life. Now, the muscles that we're going to be talking about on the triple warmer meridian include teres minor. So the teres minor originates at the lateral border and adjacent posterior surface of the scapulae. It's the teres minor and the teres major are right next to each other. And the teres minor is one of the four muscles that comprise the rotator cuff. So it's a little muscle that attaches the scapula, the shoulder blade, to the arm bone. And the emotions that affect the triple teres minor: elation, despair, feeling despondent, lightness, heaviness, loneliness, feeling humiliated, feeling hopeless. And when we find that balance in our lives, that strengthens the triple heater meridian and balances the teres minor meridian. Solitude affects that meridian, feeling buoyant and service. Now, The next muscle we're going to be talking about in the triple heater meridian is the sartorius. The sartorius muscle is a thin, long, superficial muscle in the anterior compartment of the thigh. It runs down the length of the thigh and runs over the hip and the knee joints and is the longest muscle in the human body. So again, the emotions affecting triple meridian and the sartorius. The negative emotions, despair, feeling despondent, feeling heavy, feeling lonely, feeling humiliated, feeling hopeless. The positive emotions, elation, lightness, service, solitude in a positive way, when you're really at peace with the world around you. The gracilis muscle is the most superficial muscle on the medial side of the thigh. And again, the emotions, elation, despair, lightness, heaviness, loneliness, humiliation, hopelessness, solitude. Now, the soleus muscle on the triple heater meridian, the soleus muscle is your calf muscle. It's the long muscle in your lower leg. Again, elation, despair, despondency, lightness, heaviness, loneliness, humiliation, hopelessness, service, balance, buoyancy, and solitude. And the gastrocnemius muscle, also on the triple heater meridian, the gastrocnemius muscle, it's just under the skin at the back of your lower leg on the top of the calf. So the soleus is the long muscle, and the gastrocnemius is that fatty muscle that looks fatter than the long one, and the same muscles. So moving on to the gallbladder meridian, the emotions and gallbladder meridian is about choice making. It's about making choices that are right for you and the entire universe. Anterior deltoids at the front of the shoulder. And then we're also going to be talking about the popliteus. And the popliteus is a small, thin, fat, flat, triangular shaped muscle on the back of the knee. So what emotions affect your anterior deltoid and the popliteus? So rage. So rage is an extreme form of anger. Anger, wrath, self-righteous indignation, being bored, feeling impotent, feeling passive. Now, positive emotions affecting anterior deltoid and the popliteus: love, making choices that are right for you, and feeling proud of the choices that you make. So I'm coming towards the end, and there's so many other muscles that I could be talking about. And so we're going to end here with the gallbladder meridian. So there's definitely more. The body is absolutely fascinating. So if you're listening to this broadcast and you've identified some areas in the body that have had chronic aches, what do you do about it? Well, the first thing that I would do is I would journal about these emotions and how they show up in your life. A lot of times you can think about weather and climate. So climate is the predominant emotion, and weather is emotions that come and go. So I would really notice predominant emotions in your life and how they're showing up in your body, and then ask yourself, how can you move this energy? What do I need to do to release and resolve this energy? You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. The body is fascinating, and your body is always giving you messages. And when we listen with compassion to the messages that your body is giving you and release the emotions behind it, you don't need to be in pain or suffering. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter. And remember that natural healing actually works. And when you take the time to resolve these emotions, you can feel better naturally. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.